It's not the silence that breaks you. It's the hope you attach to it, the waiting, the checking, the quiet deal you make with yourself to stay patient just a little longer. And the most dangerous part is this: you tell yourself you're being mature, understanding, calm, when in reality, you're slowly abandoning your own standards. Hook. Because here's the truth most people never say out loud. Rejection doesn't hurt the most. Ambiguity does. The unanswered messages. The maybe. The distance with no explanation. That's where confidence erodes, where self-respect leaks out quietly, where powerful people turn into versions of themselves they don't recognize. And once you see how this starts, you'll never tolerate it again. It usually starts small. Nothing dramatic. No argument. No clear rejection. Just a delay. You send something simple, genuine, low pressure. Hours pass. Then a day. And when a reply finally comes, it's wrapped in one familiar phrase. I've just been busy. And you accept it. Not because it makes sense, but because you want it to. Because questioning it feels risky, and believing it feels easier. But here's what most people miss. Being busy isn't the issue. Everyone is busy. The issue is priority. People make time for what matters to them, even when life is heavy. Especially when life is heavy. And when someone consistently places you on pause without acknowledging the cost, it's not chaos. It's a quiet decision. One they didn't have to explain, because you didn't make them. So you start filling in the blanks for them. You tell yourself they're overwhelmed, tired, dealing with things you don't understand. And every excuse you make on their behalf slowly trains them how to treat you. Not because they're calculating, but because human behavior responds to patterns. If your attention is always available, your absence is never felt. And this is where the first crack forms. Not in the connection, but in you. Because each time you accept inconsistency without clarity, you trade a piece of self-respect for the comfort of potential. You stay loyal to the version of them you hope will show up, instead of the version that's actually there. Here's the hard truth. Someone who values you doesn't disappear and call it busyness. They communicate. They anchor. They make sure you don't feel forgotten while they handle their life. And when that effort is missing, it's not something to negotiate. It's something to notice. Because the moment you teach someone that access to you requires no intention, no consistency, no follow-through, you don't just lose their respect. You begin losing your own. Maybe sounds harmless, soft, polite. It feels like an open door, like possibility still exists. But that's exactly why it's dangerous. Because maybe doesn't move anything forward. It freezes you in place. It keeps you close enough to hope, but far enough from clarity. And over time, that suspended state becomes a form of control. When someone says maybe, they're not confused. They're undecided about you, not about the situation. And instead of owning that truth, they hand you uncertainty and let you carry the emotional weight of it. You start waiting, adjusting your plans, holding space for something that hasn't earned it. And the longer you stay there, the more you train yourself to live without direction. What makes maybe so powerful is that it turns self-respect into something negotiable. You tell yourself you're being patient, open-minded, easygoing. But beneath that story is a quieter reality. You're postponing your own movement to preserve access to someone who hasn't chosen you. And the cost of that delay isn't just time. It's momentum. People who truly want you don't keep you guessing. They create space. They give answers that move life forward. Interest doesn't hide behind ambiguity. It shows up with intention. And when that intention is missing, the message is already clear, even if the words aren't. The mistake isn't hoping. It's staying. Staying in conversations that go nowhere. Staying emotionally available to someone who benefits from your presence without committing to it. Because maybe isn't an invitation. It's a holding pattern. And every moment you remain there, you're choosing stagnation over growth. The strongest shift you can make isn't demanding certainty. It's becoming someone who doesn't orbit indecision. Someone who treats unclear answers as information, not challenges. Because the moment you stop waiting for maybe to turn into something real, you regain the power to move forward. I need space lands differently than silence. It sounds honest, reasonable, almost mature. And that's why it cuts deeper. Because when it's said without context, without reassurance, without a clear direction, it creates distance while avoiding responsibility. It lets someone pull away without fully letting go, leaving you to sit in the uncertainty they created. What makes this moment so destabilizing is the contrast. Just days ago, the energy was there, the effort, the closeness. And now suddenly you're asked to step back with no explanation, no timeline, no sense of where you stand. And your mind starts working overtime. You replay conversations. You soften your needs. You tell yourself that giving space is the mature thing to do. But here's the distinction most people never make. Healthy space comes with communication. It comes with clarity. It comes with care. Someone who values you doesn't disappear and call it self-reflection. They anchor the connection before creating distance. They make sure you're not left guessing what the silence means. Distance without accountability isn't about healing. It's about repositioning. It keeps you available without being present. It preserves access to you while suspending your expectations. And the test isn't whether you allow space. It's how you respond to the ambiguity that comes with it. This is where many people lose themselves. They wait. They shrink. They put their lives on pause, hoping the distance will bring someone back clearer, more committed, more certain. But people don't drift away from what they value. They protect it. They communicate when it's fragile, not when it's convenient. The disciplined response isn't chasing or questioning. It's stillness. It's choosing not to orbit someone who won't define the relationship they're stepping away from. Because the moment you accept undefined distance, you accept undefined value. And nothing erodes self-respect faster than waiting in silence for someone else to decide what you're worth. When someone says, "You deserve better," it sounds kind, thoughtful, almost selfless. But pay attention to how it feels in your body, because confusion follows immediately after. Comforted, yet dismissed. Valued, yet released. That's because this phrase isn't closure. It's rejection wrapped in guilt, designed to soften their exit without fully owning it. What they're really saying isn't about your worth. It's about their unwillingness to invest. You deserve better is often a way to walk away while keeping the moral high ground, to leave without being seen as the one who caused pain. And in doing so, the responsibility quietly shifts to you. You're expected to accept the compliment and swallow the loss at the same time. This is where people get trapped. They hear those words and think there's still care there, still potential, still a chance that maybe, with time, things could be different. But people who truly believe you deserve better don't remove themselves from your life without clarity. They don't disappear while praising you. They don't leave you with warm words and cold absence. The painful truth is this. Sometimes your value is recognized, just not enough to be chosen. And that realization stings because it forces you to confront something you'd rather avoid. That effort and loyalty don't guarantee commitment. And chasing after someone once they've said this only deepens the wound. Because now you're trying to convince someone to stay after they've already stepped away. This is the moment where growth is decided. Not by what they said, but by how you respond. You can treat "you deserve better" as an invitation to wait, to prove, to hope. Or you can hear it for what it is, information. A signal to redirect your energy toward a life that doesn't require someone else to validate your worth. Because real self-respect isn't arguing with rejection. It's accepting it cleanly and moving forward without resentment. The moment you stop looking to them for confirmation is the moment their words lose their power over you. "You're such a good person." It sounds like a compliment. And on the surface, it is. But over time, you start to notice a pattern. Those words are offered generously, while effort is withheld quietly. You're appreciated, but not pursued. Valued, but not chosen. And that's when the realization hits. This isn't admiration. It's pacification. Being seen as good often means being seen as safe, predictable, reliable. And while those qualities matter, they can become a trap when they're not paired with desire or intention. You show up. You listen. You support. You invest. But you're never fully invited into the center of their life. You're kept close enough to provide comfort, but far enough to avoid commitment. This is where many people confuse kindness with connection. They believe that consistency will eventually be rewarded, that if they just keep being understanding, patient, accommodating, something will shift. But attraction doesn't grow from overavailability, and commitment doesn't come from convenience. When someone places you in the role of emotional safety net, they've already decided how much access you're allowed. The hardest truth to accept is that approval without action is a dead end. Compliments that don't come with presence are not affirmations. They're placeholders. They keep you engaged while nothing actually changes. And the longer you stay in that role, the more you shrink your own standards to fit someone else's comfort. Transformation begins when you stop building your identity around being liked. When you realize that being a good person means nothing if your goodness isn't respected. Boundaries give kindness its weight. Without them, your value gets diluted into background noise. The moment you stop accepting praise as a substitute for commitment, something shifts. Your time becomes selective. Your energy becomes intentional. And you no longer settle for being appreciated in words while ignored in action. By now, it's easy to think the damage comes from them. They're mixed signals. They're distance. They're half-answers. But the deeper loss happens somewhere else. It happens the moment you start adjusting yourself to stay connected. When you ignore what you feel. When you silence your instincts. When you tell yourself it's not that bad, even though something inside you knows it is. Self-abandonment doesn't happen all at once. It happens in quiet compromises. You wait when you should move. You accept less so you don't lose access. You lower your standards just enough to keep hope alive. And slowly, without realizing it, your world starts revolving around someone who hasn't earned that position in your life. What makes this so dangerous is that it feels responsible. It feels patient. It feels mature. But underneath that story is fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of starting over. Fear of facing the silence that comes when you stop chasing. And that fear convinces you to stay in situations that drain you instead of strengthen you. This is the real cost of ambiguity. Not rejection, but erosion. The slow wearing down of confidence. The constant second-guessing. The habit of placing someone else's comfort above your own clarity. And the longer it continues, the harder it becomes to recognize the version of yourself who once moved with certainty. The turning point isn't when they leave. It's when you notice how much of yourself you've already given away trying to keep them. When you realize that the connection you've been protecting has been costing you your peace, your focus, your direction. And that loss can't be blamed on them anymore. Reclaiming yourself begins with honesty. Admitting that staying has been more painful than letting go. That waiting has done more damage than walking away ever could. Because the moment you stop abandoning yourself for someone else's indecision, you create space for a life that doesn't require you to disappear to be accepted. This is where everything shifts. Not because they change. Not because they finally choose you. But because you decide to stop negotiating with uncertainty. Stoic discipline isn't about becoming cold or detached from life. It's about directing your energy with intention and refusing to bleed it into situations that give nothing back. Control was never about managing their behavior. That was the illusion. Real control begins the moment you recognize what's actually yours to command. Your time, your attention, your emotional responses. You stop reacting to delays. You stop chasing explanations. You stop rewarding inconsistency with access. And in doing so, you quietly reclaim your power. Stoic discipline teaches a simple but uncomfortable truth. If something disrupts your peace consistently, it's not meant to be tolerated. You don't argue with it. You don't analyze it to death. You remove yourself from it, not out of anger, but out of alignment. Because your peace is not something you beg others to preserve. It's something you build through what you allow and what you refuse. This is where most people hesitate. They mistake discipline for loss. They think stepping back means giving up something valuable. But what you're actually giving up is chaos. You're giving up the emotional tax of waiting, checking, hoping. And what you gain in return is clarity, direction, a sense of self that isn't dependent on someone else's attention. Here's the practical shift. When effort isn't matched, you don't compensate. You recalibrate. When communication fades, you don't chase, you refocus. And when someone shows you they can only meet you halfway, you stop standing in the middle. Discipline is choosing solitude over inconsistency. It's choosing progress over attachment. And the moment you commit to that choice, control stops being something you seek. It becomes something you live. The moment you stop orbiting someone else's indecision is the moment everything changes. Waiting stops being a habit, and movement becomes your default. You begin to see your life not through the lens of what someone might give you, but through the energy you choose to invest in yourself. And that shift, subtle at first, becomes unstoppable. This is the identity shift. You're no longer the person who adjusts excuses or shrinks to fit someone else's schedule or moods. You're the person who moves forward even when the path is uncertain, who builds, creates, and grows while others remain stuck in cycles of maybe, busyness, or emotional avoidance. Your time, your attention, and your focus are no longer negotiable commodities. They're your armor, your leverage, your standard. Movement transforms perception. People notice when you're no longer waiting, not because you're distant or bitter, but because your presence now carries purpose. Your energy draws those who value you and naturally repels those who only take. And for the first time, clarity doesn't come from their words. It comes from your actions, your priorities, your unshakable alignment with what matters to you. The hardest part of this shift is embracing the discomfort of letting go. Letting go of hope for someone who's already chosen otherwise. Letting go of the imagined what-ifs that kept you frozen. But the payoff is enormous. Your life begins to move in rhythm with your standards, not someone else's indecision. And in that movement, you reclaim not just time and peace, but the version of yourself who never needed validation to know their worth. This is the transformation, from reactive waiting to proactive living, from being tethered to uncertainty to being anchored in self-respect, from giving your energy to someone who never deserved it, to investing it where it counts, into yourself, your growth, and the people and opportunities that rise to meet you. Power doesn't return gradually. It arrives all at once in the moment you stop participating in the games that once controlled you. It hits when you realize that your worth was never dependent on their approval, their attention, or their timing. You've walked through silence, maybe space, soft exits, and empty compliments. And now, for the first time, none of it has authority over you. This is the apex of transformation. You no longer wait for someone to choose you, because you've chosen yourself. You no longer shrink, soften, or justify your presence to fit into someone else's emotional convenience. Every decision you make is filtered through clarity, discipline, and self-respect. And that creates an undeniable energy, one that commands attention not through need or manipulation, but through sheer alignment with who you've become. It's not about revenge. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about the quiet, unstoppable certainty that comes when your life is no longer dictated by someone else's indecision. And in that moment, everything shifts. Doors open naturally. Opportunities accelerate. Relationships that matter become reciprocal. and your focus sharpens with a precision that fear or uncertainty could never allow. This is the moment you reclaim not just power, but dignity, not just control, but direction, not just peace, but momentum. And once you experience this, you understand something crucial. Nothing outside of you can take it away, because it lives in the way you walk, the choices you make, and the standards you refuse to compromise. Power returns the instant you stop surrendering it. The journey doesn't end with leaving behind uncertainty or rejection. It begins there, because what you've built, the discipline, the clarity, the refusal to tolerate half measures, becomes your standard. You no longer negotiate your worth with anyone. You no longer shrink to fit someone else's comfort. You no longer wait for crumbs of attention, words of reassurance, or signs of interest that should have been there all along. Your standard is simple but unbreakable. You move forward with focus, you protect your peace, and you invest only in what matches your energy and aligns with your purpose. You measure people not by what they say, but by what they consistently show. You no longer accept maybe, busyness, or empty praise as substitutes for truth. Your life now orbits around certainty, growth, and reciprocal connection, not confusion, compromise, or emotional games. And here's the most powerful part. Once you embody this standard, you stop chasing validation. You stop seeking approval. You stop shrinking for anyone else. Because your worth is no longer external, it's internal, unshakable, and undeniable. The right people, opportunities, and relationships naturally rise to meet you. The wrong ones fall away without effort. So take this with you. Peace, power, and progress are not gifts given by others. They are claimed when you stop participating in the chaos that once defined your life. You are no longer waiting. You are moving. You are building. You are leading. And from this place, you don't just survive heartbreak or confusion. You rise above it, stronger, wiser, and fully aligned with the standard you now live by.